Yes, okay. Like I was saying before, this is a document that I wrote and sent it to FIGU Switzerland. They seem to like it. It's actually 45 pages long, but I'm only going to do the part about the Talmud Manual. It's a synopsis of the Talmud Manual, like 20 paragraphs basically. And there's a few things I want to go through before I get into that synopsis. And like, this is what I put in the front. I mean, for most of the people here, I don't think this applies, but I'll say it anyway. This writing is meant only for those who are ready for the truth. It's not meant for any religious people who may be offended by the something they might consider heresy. And so if you're not ready for the truth, you should put this writing aside. However, for those who are ready, you should keep, and if you're already striving for the truth, you should continue reading and studying it and viewing this document. Okay, there's a few clarifications of terms that I want to go through before I get into that. First of all, the name in the Talmud Manual, the name Emmanuel is spelled with a J rather than an I as it's spelled in the Bible. And that's correct according to the Swiss German language. In Isaiah 7:4 in the Bible, it says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and we'll call him Emmanuel." Okay, Emmanuel means the one with JHWH knowledge. Another thing we should clarify is that we should distinguish between the Jewish Talmud and the Talmud Manual. The Talmud Manual should not be confused with the Jewish Talmud. These two documents have very different origins and very different meanings. The Talmud Manual has no connection with the Jewish Talmud. Talmud Manual can be explained as the teaching of Emmanuel. The term Talmud comes from the Hebrew language and means the learning, study, and science. Okay, this document, I was thinking maybe I should explain who Billy Meyer is, but I'm not going to go into that. I think that's been explained pretty much already by this group. But I will talk about what is the Talmud Manual, especially 2016 edition. The Talmud Manual is based on a set of scrolls that was discovered by Billy Meyer in an ancient tomb cave. And that tomb cave is purported to be the actual tomb that Emmanuel was laid in after his crucifixion and staking. The original, Billy had this translated by a person by the name of Isha Rashid, who was an Orthodox lay priest, and he could translate ancient Aramaic into German. And he gave the scrolls to Isha, and Isha translated them, but they were that translation was found to contain too much erroneous information. So Billy, with the help of planar and extraterrestrial humans, obtained a correct translation from a high spirit level, namely Arahat Athersada. Okay, so I'm going to divide. This is kind of what you might call historical Jesus research, and I'm going to divide the historical Jesus research into three periods. First, you have the scholarly period from like the early 1700s. And during this period, the scholars and theologians attempted to approach the Bible as a materialistic historical document rather than as a supernatural document that had been influenced directly or indirectly by God. And there's some examples of those people who did that. Herman Emanuel Ramirez and H.J. Oldsman, Albert Schweitzer. And then next is the archaeological period, Jesus in India. And during this period, the researchers attempted to provide an evidence of Jesus pre and post crucifix activities in India and in other parts of the world. And some examples of that is Nicholas Natorosh, Swami Abhidhamanda, Nicholas Lurch, Meher Baba. And of course, we come to the final period, the Talmud Manual period, which began in 2011 to the present. And during this period, the official Talmud Manual, FIGU, and other Billy Meyer material provide exacting true details of the actual historical events of Emmanuel, his life, his activities, prophecies, true teachings, etc. And Jim Deerdorf did an excellent analysis of the TJ, even though he didn't have the official translation until 2011. Okay, so let's go on to the body of the synopsis at 20 paragraphs. Number 1, Jesus' real historical name was Emmanuel. 2, Emmanuel's birthday was February 3, 2 BC. The Star of Bethlehem was a spacecraft, also known as a UFO. More specifically, a Pleiadian beam ship. Stars do not hover, but spacecraft do. King Herod's real historical name was Herod Antipas, and he was not a king, rather he was a tetrarch. I'm sorry, I got to speak lower. Tetrarch means ruler of 1/4 of the country, sort of like a provincial governor in modern conceptual terms. Number 5, Emmanuel's biological father was Gabriel, an extraterrestrial human. In Emmanuel's time, the concept extraterrestrial human did not exist, so Emmanuel referred to Gabriel as a celestial son. Emmanuel always maintained that he was the son of a celestial son, and he maintained that he was not the son of God. John the Baptist's real historical name title was Johann, Jans the Initiator. Jans did not baptize, rather he initiated individuals into the group of the knowing ones. Emmanuel did not go into the wilderness for 40 days where he was tempted by the devil. Rather, during that period, he was taken to a Pleiadian mothership and to other parts of Earth and cosmos, where he was educated, trained, and prepared for his mission on Earth. Emmanuel did not heal by supernatural miracle works. Rather, he healed by herbs, hypnosis, and by activating the self-healing powers of those healed. Emmanuel's teachings centered around the omnipotence of creation and the laws and recommendations of creation. Emmanuel taught that God was just an extraterrestrial human and that creation was immeasurably far above God. He referred to God as an Ishwish. Ishwish is an ancient Pleiadian term that means king of wisdom. One of the laws of creation that he taught was the evolution of consciousness and the law of reincarnation of the spirit. Emmanuel was not crucified on a cross, rather he was staked to a Y-shaped tree trunk. Emmanuel did not die on the cross, rather he only went into a state of apparent death, that is, near-death experience. His body was placed in a tomb that had a secret passageway. He recovered from his wounds with the aid of healers from India. After 3 days, he was able to escape from the tomb by its secret passageway. Emmanuel had 17 female disciples in addition to 12 male disciples. Emmanuel's disciples could not or were not willing to grasp his true teachings. Rather, they distorted and falsified his teachings, and they formed a cult after him, which became the Christian religion. Emmanuel did not ascend into heaven. Rather, what happened was, after his farewell instructions to his disciples, a Pleiadian beam ship landed nearby. Emmanuel entered into it, the beam ship took off and disappeared into the sky. Emmanuel traveled extensively and eventually settled in India, where he married a young woman named Akara. He procreated offspring and lived to the age of 115 years. Emmanuel is buried in or near Srinagar, Kashmir, India. 17. Emmanuel's teachings influenced and led to a revival of Buddhism and other local belief systems, although the religions became distorted from the truth. 18. Judas Iscariot did not betray Emmanuel. Rather, he was the only disciple who could read and write, and he was the author of the original ancient Aramaic Talmud Emmanuel. The disciple who betrayed Emmanuel was a person named Judas Iscariot. These two names are very similar and easy to confuse. Judas Iscariot was a scribe, whereas Judas Iscariot was the son of a chief Pharisee. Emmanuel did not feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 3 fishes. Rather, 253 people had gathered at first, but most of them went away, leaving only 51 people. Emmanuel used 15 loaves of bread and 30 fish to feed 51 people. Emmanuel did not walk on water. Rather, what happened was 5 of his disciples entered a boat and began to cross the sea. The disciples' boat got caught in a storm, and the wind and waves threatened them. Emmanuel saw this from a hill on shore, so he got into a small flat boat and rowed out to assist the disciples. The waves obscured Emmanuel's raft, and disciples became afraid and thought that Emmanuel was hovering above the water. Okay, so that's the 20 paragraphs, and I'm going to give a little bit of a commentary on this, which comes from the TJ. It's a kind of a summarizing of some of the commentary, since there's this marked difference between the commonly accepted religious beliefs of the Bible and the logical and rational material provided by the Talmud and Manual. Talmud and Manual material is presented as objective truth rather than belief. Okay, 20, that's actually correct. That's incorrect number, but I'm using it anyway. The book known as the Bible is not a religious book, but rather a fantastically composed Jewish chronicle. The Bible, which is concerned with pronounced irrational teachings, has no relationship to Emmanuel's teachings, since Emmanuel's teachings are directly connected with the effective truth. Since the Bible's book of Matthew has the closest parallel to the TJ, it should be noted that the disciple Matthew did not write a gospel, rather this was written by several different individuals. First, Philemon the Gibeon wrote a document based on falsified fragments of the TJ, which had been poorly handed down after being embellished and altered. Joshua, a scribe, wrote a falsified version of Philemon's writing based on his own sole discretion. Next, there were a literate Greek Jew who had converted to the new Christianity, finalized the Gospel of Matthew in August 81 AD from 3 different pieces. The various pieces were lost. Many falsified writings were put into circulation and attributed to Emmanuel's apostles. However, no disciple or apostle ever left behind any personal testimony except Judas Iscariot. Some female disciples conducted teaching activities which resulted in writings and letters made by scribes, but these were completely burned by the resultant Christianity in the church. The Gospel of Luke was written by a literate woman named Fatima of Damascus upon dictation by Luke, who had heard everything by means of a Matthew story. The Gospel of Mark was dictated by a scribe by John Mark in 69 AD. The Qumran records were influential to the Gospel of Mark. The designation Jesus Christ was a false title given to Emmanuel, which comes from the ancient Greek language and means something like the deified, fundamental, anointed one. Dionysius, son of Zeus, was one of the early Greco-Roman deities to hold the title anointed one, and that was centuries before Emmanuel. Emmanuel means the one with JHWH knowledge. Okay, there you go. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Got some more pages. Some more. All right. The Christian and rational teachings are contrary to the true human and open teachings of Emmanuel, because the Christian teachings are characterized by the radical and definitive interpretation of Jewish law. Paul was not descended from a strictly Jewish family, did not possess Roman citizenship, was not Hellenistically educated, and did not enjoy Pharisaic theological education, but rather he was born as a Saul in the poor and simple craftsman's family. He entered service as a soldier, and at age 30, he pursued Emmanuel in Syria. Okay, so that's all the gospel. The synopsis of the Talmud and Emmanuel, and related to the gospels that I'm going to cover today. There's like 35 more pages, but that's all I'm going to cover today. Any questions?